If we're doing this as stocks, the RJ stock is going up, 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 up. His college teammate, who was drafted number 1, Zion Williamson, you and I were part of a conversation this week about this. The Pels are in a bad way.
RJ, this year, things feel like for the Knicks as a whole, there's more organizational alignment with the roster, with new front office here, and that's going to create a better developmental situation for all these young guys. RJ, Kevin Knox, and Mitchell Robinson, and the Knicks. It's kind of crazy how quickly they can start to feel like a competent team. And if you're a Knicks fan, you got to be feeling good about that. And some of the wins they've had this year have just been really impressive. I come away looking at them as a team that I definitely underrated entering the season. And
everybody did.
Everybody did. And Julius Randle's progress, granted he still turns the ball over way too much, but he's been a little bit better defensively, making better passes overall, racking up more assists. It's nice to see these players making progress. And RJ especially. RJ is still the guy on that roster that, like, if he can get that perimeter jumper to click with consistency, as we saw last night, and not shoot below 30% as he is on the full season, that changes the course of who they can be and how soon they can get there. So RJ's development is still the number one thing to watch.
So the RJ, if we're doing this as stocks, the RJ stock is going up, 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 up. His college teammate, who was drafted number 1, Zion Williamson, you and I were part of a conversation this week about this. The Pels are in a bad way and got beat up by Utah last night. Another game that got, so many of their games are in front of a national TV audience, so people get to see this.
They're 0-6 on national TV, I think, so far this season.
Brutal. I mean, absolutely brutal. And, I did not think that, I think, how do I say this? You and I at the beginning of this season thought that Zion is going to be a superstar this year. And that's just not happening. It's just not happening right now for them and for him. And I sensed in the conversation that we were having that you have a little concern as to, what this means going forward, what we're seeing right now versus what we saw last year versus what we saw from him at Duke, the player that we saw at Duke, who looked like, the next sure thing, LeBron level. This guy is going to be, has got a chance to be.
Let's hold your horses with LeBron. That's a little bit much.
People thought that Zion could be one of the greatest players of all time. Yes, they did.
I mean, one of the
we
best
can do revisionist history. They did,
but I'm going to say not a LeBron level. That's LeBron level was a different tier.
I'm saying
one of the best players in the game and possibly one of the greats. Absolutely, that was a conversation, but not like GOAT.
People were more excited to win that lottery than any lottery in the last decade.
We saw remember Alvin Gentry's reaction?
Yes.
Inside the lottery. I was in that lottery.
Because we thought that this is a transcendent player that only comes in the league.
Transcendent. So, yeah. Okay. That's a great word.
All right.
But with Zion, the offensive end of the floor is still highly impressive. His ability to score near the rim is Giannis level. Really fantastic. He's an unselfish passer, and I think he's a better playmaker than what shows in the stats. He averages only 1.8 assists per game. To me, he's a better passer than the stats indicate. Defensively, oh boy, what's going on there, Chris? He does not put in effort. He does not look as explosive. He does not look focused. He doesn't box out. I mean, just like up and down the line of everything you don't want from a defensive player, he has it. And that is very, very concerning considering what we saw from him in the past. When he was in high school and he was at Duke, this was a guy who, yes, sometimes he would be a bit slow to rotate or he'd miss a rotation, just like every other young player. But one thing you could always count on from Zion was effort. He would always put in effort. He'd always play hard and set a tone for his defense. Nowadays, it's the utter opposite. And I watch that and I think multiple things. Either He's not the same level athlete that he was prior to the injuries, and maybe it's affecting him. It could be conditioning. It could be weight. It could be that he needs to lose weight because he is still heavy. And he uses that to his advantage in some ways on offense, when he's just bullying guys and, just rolling through them. But on defense, maybe it hurts him. But it could also be the fact that, they don't want him to put in this amount of effort because of the injury concern, and they want him to stay healthy long term, so they don't want him to pick up wear and tear. And that's just me putting my tinfoil hat here, but I think it's reasonable considering this guy's body type at 6'6", 284 pounds, and the injuries that he's had. Isn't it at least reasonable that perhaps they don't want him going full throttle over the course of the full season? Because that's the part that's weird to me. The athleticism from injuries, I get it, all that, but the fact that effort is from 100 to 0. The closeouts he has that are so lazy, it's just kind of sickening to watch at times. It really is. If we're being honest here, it's sickening. And it needs to be better for this team to be anything close to what we believe it can be this season or in the future.
All right, let me join you in the tinfoil hat. Okay. I'll put mine on and I'll say, and we'll join together. And I'll say, okay, well, I'll say you're not crazy. Because why the hell else would you get Steven Adams? Why? Unless you're trying to ease the load, right? All right, he's responsible for Zion. You're not the guy that protects the rim all the time. That's getting too early fouls, right? I got Steven Adams so that he could be that guy, and you could be the guy next to him, right? And so, because it's not a natural fit. We all admit that it's not great to have Steven Adams, who the only offensive, he's a outstanding screen setter. That's what he is. But
and a great rebounder, hard-nosed defender.
He is absolutely no threat anywhere outside of 4 feet from the basket. We don't care. You could stand out there. If Steven Adams wants to stand 12 feet away from the basket, so be it. Nobody's going out there with him. You know what I mean? And and he's also not a guy that's going to be catching a bunch of lobs or anything like that. So, if I'm putting on the tinfoil hat, I say, okay, they did that to lighten the defensive load on Zion, because otherwise it makes no sense. Why would you want him taking up that space down low when you know 100%. That's what Zion does?
100%. It's almost sort of relates to what we were talking about with the Bucks. You have Brook Lopez, the big guy down low. You can allow Giannis to roam. Yes. It alleviates any need to put Giannis at the 5 over the course of a full, long, tough regular season. Same concept here. The difference is Steve Adams can't shoot threes like Brook Lopez can, and so the offensive spacing is not the same for Zion to drive and get into the paint. He still produces at a high level, even with
Steven Adams creates no space.
And
for you.
Ultimately, I'm writing a story about the Pelicans for Monday, and it's not fully reported or anything like that, but some of the conversations I've had, it's very, very apparent that part of the reason for getting Steven Adams is exactly what you're saying, to alleviate any defensive demand on Zion Williamson. It's to change the culture and bring in somebody there who plays the way he does, Steven Adams, that is. And Zion, if that's going to be the case, if you're going to have a rim protector there, he's got to be more active off ball. He needs to be locked in. His closeouts need to be better. So the technique is just very poor. And there's an instance earlier this week in a game where it was 4 or 5 plays in a row where a guy just burned him on closeouts. And that can't happen. That's putting undue pressure on Steven Adams, on the rest of that defense to have to rotate. And, there's some ideas about, why don't play Zion at the 5 more? Oh, please. You expect this guy to anchor your defense? No way. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And if you're switching everything, I think it's unreasonable to expect that to work over the course of the long regular season. To me, Zion at the 5 is something that you go to in certain moments where it makes sense, certain spurts in a game for 7-8 minutes here and there. But that can't be your base defense or your base lineup, right? And that's why you get Steven Adams. That's why you even have Jackson Hayes developing off your bench. That's why they've made the decisions that they've made. Ultimately, it comes down to Zion getting better as a defensive player and getting back to the level he was before. Without that, he right now, it's fair to say, and it's sad to say, right now Zion Williamson on the defensive end of the floor is a liability.